Well, the weather looks like it's improved, so I'm off to spend the night in the local forest. My name's John, and I make videos on camping, astronomy and walking. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as there may be others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with today's video. So it's decided it's going to start raining again. It's been pouring down really heavily all day, but it did clear up briefly for an hour or so, and now it's pouring down again. But anyway, I've come out anyway, and I'm just in my local forest, an area like 10-15 minutes walk from my home, and I'm heading off to a little spot that I found during the walks I was doing during lockdown, to do a little overnight camp. I wanted to use I am using my OEX Phoxx 1 little sort of bivvy tent. Really, on the face of it, it's not ideal for these sorts of conditions, so it will be a good test of the tent and a decent test of my mental resilience as well. Well, that's the tent more or less set up. It's absolutely pouring down with rain. So somehow I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to cook. But yeah, not ideal. It was supposed to have stopped raining about 2 hours ago. But never mind. Well, I've now settled in. It's still raining outside, and one of the things with this little bivvy tent is it has got a porch, but it's so small you can't safely cook in it. So rather than sit out in the rain cooking my dinner, luckily for me I've got these Wayfarer kind of boil in the bag dinners, but they're okay to eat cold, so I won't bother heating it up. I'll just eat it cold straight out the packet. Got a little glass of wine with me as well that will cheer me up when it's miserable like this. Yeah, so it's a little bit more complex than the normal camping that I do in much bigger tents. This is a tiny little tent. Can't sit up in it or get dressed or undressed or anything like that. So yeah, in bad weather it's a little bit challenging. Well, life always seems a bit better once you've had your dinner. It wasn't too bad cold, actually, that meal. Nowhere near as nice as it is hot, but a lot better than eating nothing or sitting out in the rain doing your cooking. So yeah, I'm now having a glass of wine, and that makes life feel a lot better as well. But it's a bit of a shame, because this is my first ever sort of woodland camp, and I was looking forward to hearing the birds tweeting away before they go to sleep and stuff, and yeah, generally sitting outside in a different environment to the kind of hilltop camps that I normally do. But I haven't really been able to do any of that. I've been sort of stuck inside in an oversized bivvy at the end of the day, trying to eat lying down, which isn't great. But yeah, once you're in this tent, it's fine. Hasn't shown any sign of leaking yet, but it'll probably, I'll see what happens overnight. But if you use this tent with a tarp or something to create a bit of an area you could sit outside, a bit of shelter, then yeah, it will be fine. So that's a bit of a lesson for me for this tent, I think. So either use it in good weather, which is in reality what I'll probably end up doing, or use a tarp, because it's got quite a lot, to compete against my Torridon two-man tent that's like a palace. It's quite a lot for any tent to live up to, really. But yeah, I'm just going to enjoy my wine now, and unless anything untoward happens, I'll bring you back in the morning when hopefully the weather's improved, and I'll get to hear a bit of a dawn chorus and stuff. So yeah, good night for now.
Well, it's a real shame it wasn't like this last night. But yeah, at least I've had some kind of nice sunny weather stuff. Yeah, absolutely poured down until midnight, and then eventually stopped. Yeah, so it was an interesting evening. Living in such a small tent, really, it's a kind of bivvy tent rather than a kind of livable one-person tent, if you like. Was an interesting experience. I think if you're coming from the bivvy world, then the tent would be fine, but I'm kind of used to living in my two-person Torridon Vango tent, where I've got loads and loads of space, so I found it fairly challenging yesterday. But in good weather, that tent would be really good, because it's really cosy inside. Didn't get a drop of water through it, so it's obviously nice and waterproof. I think in poor weather you'd really need a tarp to give you the ability to sit outside. But overall I was, you know, quite impressed with the way it held up to the weather and everything. I think a Phoxx 2 for only a little bit more money and a little bit more weight will give you vastly improved living space. The bit of woodland that I was at as well was absolutely covered in stinging nettles. When I found it in the winter, of course, that wasn't there. So yeah, I got stung left, right and centre because I was trying to set up in quite poor light yesterday, late on. So I could do with finding a slightly nicer spot really, so I'll have a little scout around and probably bring the tent back again when I know the weather's going to be good, rather than last night when I went out knowing the weather was going to be bad. Yeah, anyway, so I'm trotting off home now. I'll get some breakfast at home, I think. I've had a couple of cereal bars and a bit of coffee, but I'm only like 15-20 minutes walk from home. Last night I brought out a really old mat of mine. It was one of the original sort of Thermarest mats. I don't even know whether they still make it. It's got no R value or anything else on there, but it must be 25 or maybe even 30 years old. And yeah, it did a grand job last night. So I'm almost home now. Yeah, it was a nice evening out, even if it was a bit challenging. But thanks very much for coming out with me and watching the video. My next trip is in another one-man tent. I've got an MSR Elixir 1 and I'm planning on using that in the Brecon Beacons at about 500 metres, and I'm hoping that the tent's going to be good enough for that. So yeah, so for now I'll say cheerio and I look forward to seeing you again next time.